So I got my horizon line all marked up, and the vanishing point would be somewhere here. That's one of the perspective lines that I'm going to use, and one over here, one a bit above, one here, so lots of perspective lines to get these architectural details correct, and the roof somewhere here, maybe a little bit lower. And a few details here and there. 1, 2, 3, 4, some here, and yep, and the tree is somewhere here. Just mark it there. It will be just painted with the brush. And another tree here. Alright, so what I'll do next is I'll lightly erase these perspective lines. And I'll put in the figures. I'm going to leave the child that is there in the foreground. It's too complex. I just need the figures somewhere in the middle ground. So I'll leave the child out, and there are like 2 people walking here against the dark shadow, so this will give a nice contrast for us. And 2 more figures here, and maybe put the child over there. And quite a number of people in the background, further away from us, so a few people there, and that's my horizon line, and we see a few cars parked over there, and a few buildings in the background. So that's all that is needed to get started with this. I'll just mark this line because that's very important. Yep. So I'll spray some water. I'll mix some color for the sky first. So I'm using a bit of French ultramarine, a bit of quinacridone rose, and a bit of burnt sienna as well. So that's our sky, pretty pale. And next I'll clean this palette and mix a bit of a warm color, maybe a bit of yellow ochre, a bit of burnt sienna as well. And a bit of rose as well. So the church is like well lit with the morning sunshine, so it's almost a yellow. So I'll start at the top and I'll let the yellow bleed into the sky as well. I'm not after like a hard edge at this point of the painting, so I don't mind it mixing and creating soft edges. Just making sure that I cover as much as possible. I'm not really worried about the shapes. I'm just filling in the whole thing. I'm just leaving a bit of white for the figures because it's this painting is all about the sunlight, and pretty much all the figures have a kind of a highlight, a white glow on them. Sorry, a white highlight on them. So I'll leave some white space for them and I'll deal with them later. And I take this warm to put in the buildings in the backdrop as well. They are also fairly well lit by the sunlight. And I'll take this warmth into the grass as well. Right. So next I'll take a bit of viridian and a bit of lemon yellow and a bit of yellow ochre as well. Just fill in this color. just add a bit of a coolness into the green as we come towards the foreground. I'm making use of the blue that I mixed earlier for the sky to just cool down this grass towards us. I'll put in the shadows later, so I'll just let this dry completely before moving on. And another thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to use the same green that I mixed for the grass for the tree in the background as well. So it's pretty similar in color, so I'll use the same green. Yep, so that should be good. The building is still a bit wet. I just need to dry a little bit more before I put in the shadows. So next I'm going to put in the shadows, which is kind of the most important thing in this painting. So this will either make or break the painting for me. So I'll mix a bit of warm, dark colors for my shadow. I'm mixing a lot because I need to cover a fairly huge area with that. I'll add a bit of lavender as well. So the shadow is comparatively darker in certain areas and lighter in some other areas, so I'll just mix two different colors for that. Pretty similar hues, but a bit different to each other. So yeah, so one thing that is important when painting shadows in watercolor is to make sure that the colors that you use for your shadows are transparent, so that the underneath wash shows through. Unless that happens, it won't look like a shadow. So it's very important that you use transparent hues for this. All right, so looks about right, but the paint is a bit thick, so I'll spray some water and start at the top of the building and try to work the shadow on the roof. Yeah, and both these connect together here. And they come all the way up to here. Goes up like that, that moves here and that. So as you can see, I can't be bothered about the architectural details, whether it's a roof or the wall. What I need to focus on is the tone. So whatever are similar in tone should be connected together to form this shadow. So this comes all the way up here, and I need to cut around that like that, and that nice contrast over here. So it's a lot more darker here, but the paint is a bit watery, or rather it's still wet there, so I'll just leave that there like that and move to the rest of the shadow, and I'll revisit that later. And yeah. All these are in the shade, and another shape. There's a nice clean edge over here, so I'll put that in as well. Yep, so that's better. And I'll take this line further here as well. And I'll try to cut around these figures and put in this dark. The paper is still a lot wet, that's all right. Nice. All right, so we're pretty much done with the shadow shape. So bleeding a bit here. I'll clean it because it's not forming a nice shape for me. It's like pretty. Yeah. I usually paint the details later towards the end of the painting, but I need the same color to put in the what you call the details here. So what I'll do is I'll put in the details now itself. So the shadow, need a bit more details here on this side as well. Even though it will be covered by the tree, I'll just put it for the sake of putting it in here. And I make use of the same color in few places here as well, just to put in these buildings. So what I'll do next is I'll put in this tree here. So I'll take a bit of Viridian and use the same brown that I used before. Maybe add a bit of burnt sienna into it and come up with a like fairly dark green. Bit more blue in there as well. So I'll darken this side of the tree a bit later. I'll just let it dry for the moment and just sneak in a few branches while it's still wet. So that's done, and I'll make use of the same green, or rather the brownish brown, whatever that I mixed here, just to darken a few areas in the tree in the background as well. Yep, so that's good. The shadow. I'm going to put in these windows and stuff, which is in the shadow. So they need to read as part of the shadow, but they also need to look like windows. So what I mean is that the tonal difference between the shadow and the windows should not be that great. It should be just a little bit more darker than the shadow, so that it doesn't read separately from the shadow. So as you can see, I have mixed pretty much the same hue, but a little bit darker. Let's see how it goes. And I need to do this before this is completely dry, so that it fuzzes a bit and creates kind of a diffused shapes there. Still, it's a bit doesn't dry it enough for this effect, but never mind, I'll just keep going because yeah. I was quiet for a bit because I was really focusing on getting this right, because yeah. And just need to put this as well. This edge could have been neater, yeah, but that's what it is, yeah. It was a bit too wet when I painted it, so that's all right. That's part of painting in watercolor. Right, now next I'm going to put in this shadow in the grass. Again, I reuse these mixes that I already have, so I'll add a bit of green into the brown, a bit of Viridian. Into this brown that I mixed for the shadows, and maybe warm it up a little with a bit of burnt sienna. bit of cadmium orange as well. It's a bit cooler than what I want. All right, so that'll be my shadow color. I'll start somewhere here. So that's a big shape. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the side of the brush, or rather I make sure that the brush has kind of a flat edge so that I can draw smaller lines as I move towards the horizon. So that's better. I remove some paint and put in this shadow of the tree. Again, I make the tip of the brush flat and put in the shadows for the figures, the other tree over here. Needs a bit more pigment in there, it's not dark enough. So this shadow continues all the way up to here and merges with that shape. So that's nice. Now I smoothen these shadows a bit here as well. And a few broken lines here and there. And I'll drop in a bit of a burnt umber here, just to denote areas where the grass has worn off and you see the soil underneath. Just to add a bit of interest, that's all. Nothing major. So this needs to be done whilst the wash is wet so that it doesn't read on its own or stand on its own. It should merge with the grass. And this part of the shadow needs to be dark as well. Right. And whilst we are at it, I'll just add a bit of few of these details as well. The paper is a bit bent over here, so I don't stretch the paper anything. I never do. So the problem with that is, yeah, sometimes you have to deal with the paper that has buckled a lot. That's all right. So I'm going to dry this completely now. Alright, so now it's completely dry. I'll just define this shape a bit better. It's looking a bit odd. Yeah, so that's better. Perfect. Alright, so next I'm going to put in these figures. I'll paint the skin first for all the figures, so it's a pretty well lit day. So the skin can't be darker. All of them are like well lit. So I'm just aware that I need to leave a bit of highlights as well. That's it. And next I'll put in a bit of blue clothing. And yeah, maybe a few of maybe even a bit of red. And I'll use that red and put in a car at the back as well, just to like give a bit of harmony to the colors. And the little girl wearing a kind of a lavender frock. And I'll just darken their feet a bit and darken the shadows closer to that. Yep, so very abstract, but it reads as people, so that's what I want. Whilst I'm using that brown, I'll just might as well sneak in a few branches. Yep, better. So next I'm going to put in these buildings at the back. I'm going to use a bit of lavender. Maybe I'll use a bit of a bigger brush for that. Lavender mixed with maybe a bit of brown. Need to cut around these people. And a few fence posts. It's all very abstract. A few windows, the buildings. Just add a few details in the roof just to make things a bit interesting. I don't want to overdo it and take the attention away to the side of the painting, but yeah, that should be it. Good. Oh, so that's it. I'll remove the tape. So the purpose of today's demo is to show sunlight in a painting using watercolors. We have achieved that by using shadows, sharp contrasting shadows, so that if you can see the contrast, the tonal contrast between the object that is well lit and the shadow is like, it's not subtle, it's a strong contrast. So that's another thing that we have used in this painting to show sunlight. And also the third thing that we have used is highlights on these figures to show that this particular scene is well lit by the sun. So hope you enjoyed this demo and just give it a go and see how it turns out. Thanks for watching and hope to see you in another video. Thank you.